Hello everyone, and thank you for your time watching this video. It's always a bit strange at the beginning of the video, so I do apologise if there was a bit of a pause at that point. So every 5 years we revalidate the degree. So if you're watching this and you were a student, you may have been part of that process before. The point of revalidation is where you look at the whole degree. So you look at year one, year two, year three, the assessment methods, the modules, the learning outcomes, anything that we can embed in there, what's happening in society, and we say, is this best fit for everyone's needs? What are the students saying? What are our sector saying? What are governments saying? What are employers saying? All of that, and we combine it all. And hopefully, we churn out something which is an improved version of the last one. So it's always about evolution. Sometimes we completely have what we call revolution, and we rip up the script and we start again. But usually it's about adding, taking away, putting that, adjusting that. Students are saying this, employers are saying that, the sector is saying this. Let's see if we can get a cohesive picture. So that's what today's video is about. I've done a video because many of you are busy humans, and I'm going to try and keep this under about 10-15 minutes. Is much better. So let's get on with it. So we're going to keep the name Early Childhood Education and Care. We changed that at last revalidation. Students will still get level threes, they'll still be observed in practice. One of the biggest changes we're doing is we're going to move towards more placement days. So, for example, at the moment you do 80. More students do 80, it will be closer to 100 that we'll be asking over the 3 years. There's a purposeful point to that because what we want to do is have tasks that are inbuilt for students to go and do. So the portfolio will grow as an assessment method, and you'll be asked to do more. Also changing of the observation. So at the moment we use the adult engagement scale. For those of you that have been part of that or know what that is, we're going to be using some of the early years teaching standards to assess the teaching, the leading, and the learning, as well as the engagement with the children. So we're planning on that. So more placement, that EYTS kind of stuff. We're looking at an apprenticeship route and exploring options for that. More leadership in the degree, so being able to lead others in what we call leaderful practice. So, for an example, in year one, we've taken out the communication and language module, but we've made the reflective practice twice the size with leadership in it as well. So now it'll be leaderful and reflective practice, and one of the elements in that is likely to be leading educational programs. So, for example, how do you lead and monitor communication and language? How do you lead and monitor physical development and PSC as well? Because we know there's some big themes coming in there around the sector. But rather than looking at the actual mechanics of communication and language, we'll be looking at it through a leadership lens as well as the mechanics of leadership and communication language. Two new modules, and that's why one of communication is gone, or been readjusted into another module, I should say. SEN at level 4, which is year one, 20 credit module, and safeguarding. This is in response to the SEN issue that we've got around neurodiversity awareness, being able to adjust your pedagogical style, working with parents, all of that stuff. Safeguarding, I'm not sure why it's not in there anyway, but we've embedded SEN and safeguarding into reflective practice before. We're taking it out and separating it and putting the prime areas into reflective practice and leadership, and then having those SEN modules. That could also mean that people could buy those modules separately if they wanted to. Yeah, so that's another thing we're thinking about. So the other thing that we've been thinking about as well is less written work. With the growth of AI, getting you to write an essay or getting students to write an essay and not triangulating that in any way is actually just a bit pointless, really, because we know that chat or Copilot will write you beautiful essays within about 3 seconds flat. So if we're not checking or actually just making it real, so go and study a child, apply that to the child, present it to the rest of us. We're going to ask you questions about it. Or portfolio stuff. So build a package of care around a child. In pedagogy, for example, which is a module in year 2. At the moment, it's inviting a 3,000 word essay, and now we're going to be asking you to design a curriculum and present your influences, how it's sequential from one point to the other, how you've embedded children and the community as cultural capital, what influences you've taken from around the globe, but also from our own EYFS or any of our own, theory or philosophy, yeah, to make it more tangible. So it could be a mind map, it could be a presentation, it could be anything, but you'll be applying what we want to do. The picture is clear from people's voices, less written stuff and more application of these high-end ideas, and those leadership and the reflective elements. But my main questions are, what do you think about more placement hours? What's the challenges there, or what are the celebrations? What could we put in the portfolio? What would you like to see in the portfolio? What sort of observations could we do? Leadership. So what are we wanting to put in there? So things like supervision, things like coaching, things like mentoring, things like conflict, all of that sort of stuff, um, social leadership, all of that stuff. And then, so what do you think about the leadership? What do you think about the more placement hours? What do you think about us removing communication and language, but looking at it through a leadership lens in that leadership module? What do you think about less written, more presenting, more application? Would that suit you or the learners you know? And what do you think about us observing to these teaching standards as well as the engaging? Just to be clear, as it stands, we wouldn't be awarding teaching status. We would just be using some of the good practice stuff that they do to apply. So if you could have a think about that, as you know, my email is hannahl@btc.ac.uk. I reply to every email. So if I don't reply to it, it means I haven't got it. But any thoughts, any comments, that would be amazing. Thank you very much for your time and have a great day.